The Coca-Cola Company has been offered the chance to buy Pepsi's business multiple times, including for only $50,000 in 1933, but Coke turned them down. Instead, Coke tried to sue Pepsi for using the word cola in their ads, claiming that they were trying to rip off Coca-Cola's products. This backfired when Pepsi countersued, claiming that Coke was using anti-competitive tactics to build a monopoly. The courts agreed and ruled that cola was a generic term anyone could use. However, since Coke missed their chance to buy Pepsi, they ended up getting locked in an ongoing marketing battle with them. At one point, Coke and Pepsi both started cutting their prices and offering discounts to try and compete with each other, but they soon realized this was hurting both of them. Whether they made a secret deal behind closed doors or not is unknown, but soon they both reverted back to their normal pricing and tried to compete on advertising instead. Eventually, Pepsi had the simple but genius idea to actually compete on taste. In 1975, Pepsi launched the Pepsi Challenge, where they gave people 2 white cups, one containing Pepsi and one containing Coca-Cola. People didn't know which was which and were encouraged to taste both to see which they preferred. The test results showed that Pepsi was preferred by slightly more people, and so Pepsi started using this stat in all of their advertising. All across America, more people picked Pepsi time after time. Coke completely denied this was true, but when they conducted their own customer tests, they found that Pepsi did indeed score slightly higher in a blind taste test. Meanwhile, Coca-Cola was slowly but steadily losing market share. They tried everything, huge marketing campaigns and price promotions, but every year Coke's market share slightly declined and Pepsi's slightly increased. It started to seem that perhaps the Pepsi challenge was right. The problem was that more people simply preferred the taste of Pepsi. Thus, Coca-Cola began an incredibly secret mission. They were going to change Coke's formula. After rigorous testing and trials, they discovered a new cola formula that consistently performed better than both original Coke and Pepsi. Over and over, they repeated the blind taste test, and the data was clear. The new formula was more popular. So, just short of Coca-Cola's 100-year anniversary, they did the unthinkable. They changed the Coca-Cola formula and replaced it with New Coke. And immediately, the chaos began. Every single day, thousands of phone calls and letters arrived at Coke's offices. They were a mixture of distraught people begging for the old version of Coke back, and people who were downright furious. Coke had the nerve to take away the original formula. Coke expected the uproar would soon die down, especially once people actually tried the new formula, but the outrage simply intensified. The media was equally full of outrage reports, and at the Coke phone lines, it was constantly jammed with complaints for months. When New Coke advertisements were shown on giant screens in stadiums, people loudly booed. It became popular to hate New Coke. Of course, many of the people complaining hadn't even tried the new formula. As one Coke employee put it, "We could have introduced the elixir of the gods, and it wouldn't have made any difference." It was soon very clear that taste hadn't been the issue. It didn't matter if New Coke technically tasted better in blind taste tests. Coke's success had never been about taste in the first place. Thanks to its incredible marketing, the world viewed Coca-Cola as an old friend, a piece of everyday life. For around 100 years, Coke had been present, never changing, no matter what was going on in the world. It was an icon, and changing something that meant so much to people was considered a betrayal. One angry letter commented that changing Coke is like making the grass purple. Another claimed, "You've taken away my childhood." Even months later, the protests were not dying down, and it soon became clear the company had to revert back to the old formula. They had made a gigantic mistake. There were very few instances in history of such strong backlash against a company's decision, and yet despite that, the New Coke disaster ended up being one of Coke's greatest marketing triumphs. You see, when Coke caved in and brought back the original formula under the name Classic Coke, suddenly all the letters and phone calls arriving at the company were filled with adoring fans, thanking the company and commenting on how much it meant to them. One Coke marketer said, "You would have thought we'd invented a cure for cancer." Immediately after reintroducing the old flavor, Coke sales dramatically increased. Business Week named the whole thing the marketing blunder of the decade, but some skeptical analysts felt the company had staged the entire thing for publicity and to remind customers how much Coke means to them. If the whole stunt really was planned, it would be one of the greatest marketing strategies imaginable, but that was not the case at all. New Coke was a catastrophic misjudgment by Coke. They really had thought people would prefer New Coke. In fact, even after they reintroduced the classic version, they kept New Coke available in shops as well, because they thought once people actually had more time to try the new flavor, eventually people would convert to the new formula. But they were wrong again. Sales of New Coke never improved, and eventually it was removed from circulation completely. However, despite being so completely wrong, the end result was that New Coke had unintentionally made people realize how much they loved original Coke. The whole thing helped people feel more attached and loyal to Coke than ever before. By taking the classic taste of Coke away, it showed people how much they missed it when it was gone. It was a reminder of how important Coca-Cola was to them. And so, even though temporarily removing classic Coke created a huge backlash against the company, as soon as they brought it back, Coke sales increased, and people felt really grateful to the company. Thus, New Coke was one of the most successful mistakes ever. So, what does this have to do with UX design and listening to customers? Here are the key takeaways. Coca-Cola relied on data from taste tests, which indicated that New Coke was preferred. However, they underestimated the emotional attachment people had to the original formula. In UX design, user feedback might suggest certain changes, but you must consider the emotional connections users have with your product. Even if data supports a change, it can lead to backlash if it disrupts a core aspect of the user experience. Listening to customers is essential, but interpreting their feedback carefully is crucial. For instance, imagine an app redesign that removes a beloved feature. Users might have requested a cleaner interface, but if the redesign disrupts their workflow or removes something they loved, the backlash can be swift and severe. Coca-Cola's core value wasn't just in the taste, it was in its heritage and emotional significance. Similarly, in UX design, you need to understand the core value users derive from your product and ensure changes enhance rather than disrupt that value. Take the time to delve deep into what your users truly value. Is it the functionality, the ease of use, or perhaps the familiarity of the interface? Understanding this can help you make more informed decisions. Now, here's the personal take. As professionals, we need to trust our guts. Yes, listen to your users. They are the ones interacting with your product day in and day out. Their feedback is crucial, but don't be blind to do exactly what they ask without considering the bigger picture. Remember, you are the expert. You understand the broader context, the technical constraints, and the strategic vision for your product. Your job is to interpret user feedback through the lens of your expertise. Sometimes what users ask for isn't what they truly need. They might say they want more features, but what they really need is a more streamlined experience. Think about Coca-Cola. They thought they were giving customers what they wanted based on taste tests, but they missed the bigger picture, the deep emotional connection people had with the original Coke. In the same way, your users might ask for specific changes, but your professional judgment will help you discern the best course of action. So trust your gut as a pro. Listen to your users, but don't follow their requests blindly. Use your expertise to understand their underlying needs and balance that with the core value of your product. This way, you'll create a user experience that's not only functional, but also deeply meaningful and satisfying. Thanks for watching. If you found this video insightful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. See you next time.